Hey, this is Matt Winning at winningstrength.com, and today we are going to talk about different types of resistances. I think this really needs to be said, and we really need to dive into all these different areas in order for you to have a better understanding of why these may or may not be a great opportunity for you to get better. Okay. So the first thing we have is straight weight, right? It's the weight that we all use at normal gyms. They have some distinct advantages and disadvantages. Let's think about that for a second. So in straight weight, what you have is you have gravity pushing down on a particular resistance at a certain velocity or speed, making something weigh 225 or 135, right? If we take 225 up in outer space, it doesn't weigh that anymore because of gravity. So we're dealing with gravitational forces, inertia, all these other different things that are going to cause weight training or classic resistance training to have some great effects. Muscles like to use free weights because they can create inertia off of them. So let's just use the bench press for an example. If I'm bench pressing, the hardest part of that lift is going to be off the chest because I have to come down, then come up. So the weight's still wanting to go this way, and I have to reverse it that way. So for that split second off my chest, that weight is actually heavier than what's on the bar. The problem with free weights is that as they accelerate, they get lighter. So if you notice that in your normal training, you guys ever notice if you've trained for a long time, you don't ever really stick off the chest in a max effort work. You stick in the middle and in the top. My philosophy on that is because you don't get as much work in the middle and the top with free weights because it's already moving. So if you're, say, a 300-pound bencher and you're warming up with 135, let's just say for the sake of saying it's 155 pounds to move it. But as you had it moved, now it might be 120, 115 pounds. Well, if you look at volume parameters, and what you're going to find is that you've done a lot of work in the bottom and less tonnage work in the top and in the middle because of inertia. That creates a problem. Now, for most of us, if we're trying to be average strong or we're just trying to be in great shape, that's totally fine. But there's going to be a point in which the body recognizes that type of resistance and in my opinion, starts to gain less and less on using that particular type of apparatus. So the point is, can you get strong using free weights only? Obviously, the old school guys will tell you 100 years. Yes, you can. But it doesn't mean it's always the best way. What I find with free weights is that if you have the most work at the bottom, you're also causing a lot of issues with where the pressure is most likely to cause damage. So on free weights, you know, if it's the heaviest at the bottom, then that's when it's the hardest on the shoulder and the pec, and you guys see a lot of pec pulls and tears and things of that nature. The reason that I think you see that is because you're overworking one particular area like we talked about, okay? So the key is variety. I truly believe that you have to have a variety of resistance types in order for two things to happen. One, to continue the process of training for a long period of time. Two, to avoid neurological and physical burnout. Okay, so the neurological and psychological burnout of training is almost just as important as all the other physical factors that we encounter. How many of us have ever trained for a long period of time? We're like, man, I just don't want to go to the gym today. Some of that is caused by the exact same shit you're doing all the time. So if I came in and did the exact same workout all the time, which many of us do, what you start to find is that those particular exercises are what's wearing you down because it's the same stuff for too long. But let's just imagine for a second that we flip in bands and chains. Now, bands and chains are going to make it easier at the bottom and harder in the middle and the top. It's the opposite, right? It almost works against inertia. It's kind of like thinking about driving your car on the freeway while slowly applying the brakes, trying to maintain 65 miles an hour. That car is going to have to work extremely hard in order for you to maintain 65 miles an hour with you slowly applying the brakes. That's what bands and chains do. They slowly apply the brakes onto a natural resistance, causing the body to have to work in a different environment. Now, is it better than free weights? No, but it's different. And that difference causes so many other factors in order to be successful. One, you don't create sticking points. So now if your sticking point was here, if you're used to training bands and chains, you're used to it getting heavier. So you're going to push right through it. Second of all, you're going to get stronger based on the fact that neurological fatigue is going to go down. Now, there's a lot of other physical and other types of factors that are going to make bands and chains have some advantages and disadvantages. We don't really need to go into all that, but what you do need to do is kind of think about, am I training the same way too often? Am I using the same exercises too often? And in this particular video, Am I using the resistance types too often? And what you find is that if you mix and match those things up with a good clarity of what your weaknesses are, where your sticking points are, and all these other factors, you're going to find that bands and chains and free weights need to be in your program, but need to be varied and mixed. I always look at it in this perspective. If I want to be a very smart man, then I don't want a small library. I want lots of books. And the first time we read a book is probably the time we're going to get the most information from that book. So the point is that if I have a library of hundreds, if not thousands of books, or in this case, exercises, what we're going to find is that the muscles are going to have to get smarter, the brain is going to stay more stimulated, the training is going to be more fun, and you're going to have a better overall long-term production of not only strength, but muscle tissue and lack of burnout. And that's really where I think bands and chains really come into play and really help out a lot. Now, we need to know a lot of how to set these things up. So if you go on winningstrength.com, we have a bands and chains manual, we have specialty bar manual, and a lot of it's covered in the powerlifting manual for you guys to really get a good grasp. It took me 30 years of training and being around some of the best in the world to understand all this. So we can't really do it in a 5 to 8 minute video on YouTube. But what I did want to do is open up your mind and open up your eyes to making sure that you guys understand, look, these things are important and you do need them in your training. But the reason people get confused is there's so many variables, right? What we get to now is once you have the base science of understanding of how to work out, repetition, max effort, and dynamic effort method, the next thing becomes how much can you vary? And also vary based on your weaknesses, right? So we do a lot of exercises here at the gym with bands and chains because it's hitting structural weak points. If we do, say, a free weight bench press, so I'll give you an example. I've been cutting down my body weight for the last couple of years and really extremely the last 4 to 6 months just playing around with diet because I'm creating a diet manual and I want to feel like I have experience in that area. But getting back to my original point is I hit a 500-pound bench with a pause, I would say maybe 4 weeks ago. I felt where that weight felt the most difficult, which was in the middle and the top, and we've been training a lot of bands and chains in an educated fashion in order to hit that sticking point. So what I'm getting at is that I selected movements and exercises based on the weaknesses that I saw with the free weight. Because at the end of the day, for most of us, it's how much we bench. It's not how much do you bench with a doubled over orange band or how much do you bench with 5 chains on the bar. Those are kind of questions I would ask. But for normal people, you would ask that with straight weight. So what I'm saying is that use straight weight as an assessment tool, then find where your weaknesses are, and if those weaknesses match with bands and chains, you're probably going to get more reaction from using those accommodative resistances in order for you to get better. So I hope this opened up your mind. Go on winningstrength.com, check out the manuals, and if you have some more in-depth questions, join Patreon, and we will try to get to those and make them as most understandable as we possibly can.